Hello, hello, hello. Okay, I think we're ready. Hi, guys. Welcome back to a new episode of our Safe Space podcast. And today I am here with not one but two guests. Leila is back. Leila is an artist and a content creator. And we are also joined by Mito, who is a musician and rapper that goes by the name Curtis Smith. And hi, you guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. And I kind of wanted to invite them on here because, as a couple, they have been very supportive of me um, through like a lot of things. I've met obviously Mita through Leela, and even though we haven't necessarily hung out as much as I would have wished, they've still been very supportive, and the same for them. But yeah, that is why they're on here today to kind of talk about a couple of things. But first things first, I wanted to ask you guys, as I do with my other guests, how are you really, Mita and Lila?
You first.
Good. In a transitional period of my life, you know, just signed my letter of resignation for my day job uh, earlier this month, and so these are like my last 3 days of day job work,
Mm-hmm.
and simultaneously, like it was the perfect time to leave. So I'm kind of relieved, kind of nervous, but like c'est la vie.
Exactly. Exactly. Lila, how are you?
Well, since we spoke a week ago,
Yeah.
I I'm actually doing way better. I had a really good day, didn't I?
Yesterday. Yeah.
Yesterday I had a great day. It was the first like really genuinely good day in a while where I was feeling um really positive. I mentioned last time how I was like not doing as amazing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, this week has definitely picked up, and I think it's due to I've been focusing more on like my health and exercising and stuff like that. So it's true, exercise makes you feel better. Um, yeah, so that's how I'm doing.
That's great. That's great to hear from both of you. Exactly, haven't talked to you. Get me? I'm honestly I'm very nervous because my thesis is due next week. By the time this is up, it's the day of my thesis presentation, so pretty nervous, but
Congratulations, girl.
yeah,
Congrats, dude.
thank you. It's a transitional period for me too. So it's kind of nerve-wracking, but it's exciting at the same time. But yeah, thanks for asking how I am. Thank you. And another question that I do ask my guests is what do you consider as a safe space for you? You want to go first?
Space where I can freely express myself, and by expression, I mean even a lack of expression. Like, a lot of the time, I really like just spacing out and like doing nothing. And so, like, a safe space for me is a place where I can just like be that and fully immerse myself in whatever I'm feeling and just be comfortable with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And like for Lila, since we talked, you said that your safe space was Mito and
Oh.
the dog. Ooh. But do you have another safe space that you would like to share?
Um, I think actually this is super obvious, but this apartment
Yeah, for
is
sure.
a safe space.
Mm-hmm.
We just finished kind of like
Furnishing.
furnishing it and making it really feel like home because we'll probably be here for the next few years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really nice because when we moved in, that's when we got Noah and Lou. I brought Lou, and so we became a family like immediately. And so
Yeah.
while they're my safe space, this space physically also is for me most definitely because it's my. Are you good?
Yeah.
He has acid problems. It's my first time being in a space that's kind of my own that I share with someone that's like not a family member.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really special. So I've become a huge homebody. I love to stay home. Um, yeah, I'd say this is my safe space too.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same for me. My apartment is my safe space, and I kind of would prefer to kind of just lounge around here
Yeah,
a lot of the time.
yeah,
And yeah, make myself feel at home because this is home here in SF for me. And speaking of the both of you, you're both artists, musicians, so I kind of wanted to start off by talking about like safe spaces in music. And with Mito, there's a lot of lyrics, especially in your album Museo, that made made me kind of think that maybe you found a safe space in your music or in creating music. There's one from like Lessons from the East, which is
Mm-hmm.
like I do it for the love of the music, not your approval. I can't rap it, but those are the lyrics. That one, as well as From Downtown Was Fruits, There's Nothing Comes Easier, Electric Saturation, so familiar.
Familiar. Yeah,
So
good.
yeah, that kind of made me think like, how did you discover that music was a safe space for you, and for you as well, Lila, because you did work on music as well at some point.
Go first.
me first. Okay. Well, for me, music definitely. When I was in music, I think when did I start? 2018.
Yeah.
And then the last time I released music or even made music was 2020.
Yeah.
Um, and it definitely was a safe space for me for a while. Not the whole aspect of making music, but definitely the songwriting part and being in the studio was such a safe space for me. Working with my favorite producers and all of that. And I think after a while, I realized, you know, I think my situation is very different from Nico's, but for me, it was like being an artist in the industry here encompasses a lot of different things, not just being in a studio and writing music. And so all of those, why are you laughing?
Because it's true.
So all of those other aspects didn't serve me as much as just purely like being a songwriter.
Mhm.
So I would still say, actually, until now, that songwriting itself is something that brings me joy and makes me feel safe and a place where I can express myself. Um, but being a performer as a whole no longer served me, and I kind of decided this isn't really my safe space anymore.
Mhm.
And so for the past 2 years, I've been focusing on other things. I've been studying, I've been learning different skills and exploring other avenues where I can express myself and find other safe spaces. So
Nice.
that's for me. What about you?
What was the question?
How do you find a safe space?
Discover that music was a safe space for you, Mita.
It was like when I started making music. That's why I started in the first place. And then
Mhm.
when it became a job, it stopped being a safe place for me because then like I kind of let people in to that world, and
Mhm.
then I felt like I had to live up to expectations of the people that I let into that world.
Mhm.
And so when I made Museo, which is that album you just spoke about,
Mhm.
it was learning how to set boundaries with the people that I've let in, and uh, remembering why I did it in the first place, and reconnecting with that feeling that initially drew me to music in the first place. It had gotten so skewed with, like, what Lila was saying, that with everything that came with the music, that I started feeding these other facets other than the love of what music is. So in the last 2 years, or in the last year since I made Museo, I have really just kind of um, reconfigured my approach to how I want to pursue music from now on. Like rather than just something that is profitable, thank God, like for the time, it's really an intimate relationship that I have with music. And so, learning how to play the bass, learning how to create the sounds that give me that electric saturation that you recognize but can't really pinpoint what it is.
Mhm.
That's why music's my safe space.
Yeah. And actually, I was going to get to another question, which was, you know, it's important in any form of art to create for yourself and from your heart and for yourself. Um, and I was going to ask Nat if there were times where the thought of creating music that caters to an audience was more important than what you believe or what you want to create as an artist and as a person. And, as you said, it kind
It
of.
did for a long time, and I got depressed from it. You know,
Hmm.
for years.
And
I think 22 to 26,
yeah,
I was just depressed, just like, what have I done?
but how were you able to navigate through like um that whole journey, I guess?
I was just thinking about this recently. Like, I think literally like last night. It's like after after a couple of months for me, I don't realize, but I have like these thorns in my heart. And then Leela notices it because I change. Like, I'm like more irritable and stuff like that. I don't realize that like in a certain amount of time, I have like gotten these new thorns that are poking my heart. And so like I have to always like I had to check myself last night. I was like, so what are these things that are bothering me right now? Like why am I so irritable about certain things? Why do I think that a lot of people don't like me when in fact they don't really give a shit? You know what I mean? Um, and it's because I pick these things up throughout my life, and I always just have to keep checking myself to make sure that I clear the weeds.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I wanted to get to as well, is that it's important to check up on, as much as checking up on the people around you, is checking in with yourself, because I mentioned it in a couple of episodes ago, that the relationship you have with yourself is the longest one you'll have, and the one you'll have with you forever. So it's really just important to be like, okay, what's up, and how can, if I'm not happy, what can I do now to kind of get through it. But yeah, just as you mentioned, and speak going back to kind of like talking about, I guess, music, you guys did make a song together, no?
Yeah,
It was
Me too.
time. Oh,
one
yeah.
is
Well, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
one of them never got released. We did it for like for someone else. But yeah, we made time. It was on my better weather EP.
And how was that process like, of creating something, music together as a couple?
It's not how you'd expect. It wasn't like romantic and like passionate and everything. It was literally we tried to write a song together. Um, didn't work out because like as in the room together, like you know, um, and we found out that we have very different approaches to making music.
mm,
Yeah, we just honestly have really different processes when it comes to writing our own music. Mito's very
off the cuff.
yeah, like he'll go into the studio and he'll just come up with something on the spot. Whereas I to have the beat or whatever it is that I'm working with, kind of ruminate on um, everything. I'm a bit of a perfectionist that way, so I need to really have. I'm a perfectionist in every way, but I really need to have time to like think about the lyrics I'm writing, and I'll like tweak the melody like a billion times until I'm happy with it. Um, and I definitely think I could benefit from the way that Nita approaches music. But yes,
Mhm.
that was our experience. So what actually happened was, hello, um, I wrote. I think I wrote my parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wrote my verse, and then I wrote the chorus, and then I just sent it to him, and there was a space for his verse, and I was like, just do whatever you want. Um, and he did, and it turned out really nice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it still sounded cohesive, even if we didn't actually write it together at
Mhm.
all, not even on the same day or anything like that. But yeah, so we are very different artists.
But yeah, but
Yeah.
then also like we found like for example we use Procreate, and then like I'll draw something or
Oh
she draws
yeah,
something, and then after that she'll like hide it, and then I'll draw something, and then eventually we like put it together, and that's really fun.
yeah. Like we'll draw the layers, and then I'll hide the layer, and it's cool because it kind of shows we both are very different, but it still looks really cool together, and it's kind of like
Still works.
we
Yeah.
complement each other. So
There.
yeah.
And speaking of that, I wanted to, you know, earlier I said you guys are a couple. How long have you guys been together for?
Um,
3 years, 3.5 years.
3.5 years.
3.5. Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask because I think I've only heard like Lila's side.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet? Or like, how did it?
We both say different things, which is really funny. He likes to say we met in church, but we didn't meet in church. We met in a nightclub. Yeah, so romantic. He was performing. I think you know this whole story, but yeah, he was performing. I was a little bit drunk.
A little bit, just
I was
wrecked.
very drunk. Well, I wasn't drunk actually the moment we met. Like when we met, I had just got there and I was like immediately enamored. He wasn't, but I was. Um, and then yeah, and so that night was whatever. Didn't really get together, and then a few months later, we bumped into each other in church, and that's how we started going out.
That's how. Yeah, because I just remember Lila being like, "There's this cute guy." I'm like,
Oh,
oh, oh.
Don't hold back.
That's all I'll say for now. But yeah, and when it comes to you guys, and safe spaces, how has that been like for you guys? Creating a safe space within your relationship.
yeah. Um, I think Leela did a lot of the groundwork for that because I'm very fight or flight. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I grew up as an only child, and I have like a lot of these things that
Baggage.
yeah that this baggage that shaped me into who I am. So whenever I'll get too intimate with someone, for example, I would get scared, or whenever there was conflict, I would like just run away because I'd rather just not deal with it, and I'm used to that.
Mhm.
So with Lil, it was like we have to talk about this. You know, you can't just clam up all the time. So yeah, that was very enlightening for me. And then eventually, when you know, I'm still like not comfortable with doing it, but I'm more comfortable with her bringing it up. And so, the fact that I'm really able to um, kind of hash things out with her that I don't even realize is going on with me, but is manifesting in my behavior, which is why the conversation comes up in the first place, is very therapeutic for me, and that's something I consider a safe space.
Leila, you wanna kind of
Um,
share?
yeah, I agree. I mean, we have similar like issues. I think that stem from like growing up, but at the same time, we grew up very very differently. Uh, I wasn't an only child, and I never really spent a lot of time on my own, whereas neither did. And so we have just, or we started into our relationship with very different perspectives on how to be in a relationship and like expectations. Uh, and I think the reason he says I put in a lot of the groundwork is only because I knew immediately that I really wanted the relationship to work out. And I felt that he did too. It was just that, like he said, he had a lot of baggage and things that were hindering him from knowing exactly how to navigate whenever we would have a disagreement or something or an expectation that I had. And so I spent a lot of time just like trying to be as patient as possible and encouraging conversation. And I think through the both of us, and I grew a lot too in that time. Like I learned a lot of things too about his expectations, which he doesn't have that many, but things that he, the way he prefers to spend his time. Um, and I had to learn that. Like I had to kind of learn boundaries and not to be so clingy and stuff like that. And so in that whole process of us building trust and boundaries and understanding and love in our relationship, it became a really special safe space because uh, now we're at a point where, like you said, he's still, it doesn't come naturally to him to open up about things, but it's so much easier now than in the beginning. And we've built this like network with our families too, where he can come on vacation with me and my family. I can go and visit his family often and super comfortable with everyone. And I never feel afraid to bring up any kind of problem that I have or any kind of qualms or concerns to do with the two of us or how he is being or whatever it is. Like I I he makes me feel super comfortable to express myself and tries his best like 95% of the time to be understanding and patient. Um, yeah, it's always a work in progress, and I think it will be forever. Like no relationship reaches its peak and then they're just perfect for the rest of time. So yeah, that's our safe space.
It's your safe space. Yeah, you were talking. Yeah, that's exactly what a safe space is. A place that gives you comfort,
Yeah.
and which you guys talked about. And I think it's also important to kind of note that I think Lily, we mentioned this when we were talking about safe spaces in friendship, that while it is important to find, and while it is important and it is good to find safe spaces in within people, it's also important to find a safe space within yourself, and that still stays true in romantic relationships,
Oh,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
and by the
like
way, safe space. Solid, man.
yeah, yeah, and like it's important to find that safe space within yourself, because in relationships, the relationship you have with yourself will definitely affect your relationship with your
Oh
partner.
yeah,
Didn't you say
Mm-hmm.
so?
for sure.
Yeah, right. So
Sure.
yeah, that's something I was like I also thought about, that I kind of wanted to talk about with you guys. And like another thing was that I'm sure your dynamic was pretty different when you weren't living together, and when you kind of did a couple of months apart because of COVID,
Yeah.
where you didn't see each other in person. But how has that changed, um and or how's that changed and developed since you guys moved in to your physical safe space?
Well, I would say our relationship has transformed a lot. Um, Before COVID, we were still, I think, actually, majority of our relationship has been through the period of COVID. I think we were together for about a year and a half when COVID started. And at that time, we were still, I'd go over to his place, or he'd come over to my dad's place, and we'd like go on dates. And it was still that very like, it was still a serious relationship, but it was such a baby relationship in that sense. We never fought really, and it was just like we didn't really have to address any of the serious questions or things we wanted to do with our lives just yet, or there was no kind of criticizing how we spent our time. Like, whereas when we moved into the same space, I'd say it actually went pretty smoothly. Like, we didn't have a lot of fights or anything like that, but there was definitely more disagreements and more times where I was bringing up, like, hey, this is how I think we should do things. And then he'd be like, I like to do things like this. And there was a lot of like just adjusting until we found our groove and the way that we both work. And today, literally, I was like, why can't you pick this up? Like, so it's not perfect at all, but it is so, for me, worth it and has brought.
For me too.
I'm just but it's brought a lot of value, I think, to both of our lives and a lot of happiness for me, and it's brought us so much closer. Like, we know each other so much more, like crazy. Like, no one's ever known me to this degree, because like he will see, and this goes to what you were saying about our personal safe spaces within ourselves. I've struggled with like a lot of mental health things for the past few years, and in our early relationship, while he did kind of see it, he didn't see it to the extent that
He does now.
he has to witness it now sometimes, and I can't help it. And there's days where I'm just, like, I just want to cry, and like he'll hold me and let me cry, and it's not this thing. It's not the part of myself that I really want him to see, but he sees it anyway because we live together. And I think as much as I don't like to be, you know, parading that part of myself, it's also an important thing to mention, I think, because that contributed also so much to our relationship. And same with him, whenever, like he mentioned earlier, when he was going through times where, did you say you had thorns in your heart? Was that the term? Yeah.
Nice, right?
When he had a thorny heart, and I would notice it in his mood or in the way he would kind of just clam up and shut me out. And I'm very much the type who, I'll give you space if you really need it, but I'm gonna like kind of poke you a little bit and make you like open up. And it was through those times where he was really like, no, I don't want to talk about it. And I was like, come on, talk about it. And then afterwards, he would feel so much better. So
I've become a horny tart.
what the heck?
Was so sweet already.
That's what I do, though.
Yeah.
He likes to deflect. That is a perfect example. Whenever because I'm very like mushy and kind of share my feelings and emotions, and that's because I grew up in an environment where my mum did that and encouraged me to do that. And so sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, I love you so much. Like, I'm so lucky to have you." And he's like, so, but then obviously he'll show his love in other ways. So yeah, I think we just became so much closer that way because we have seen the side of ourselves that we don't really like to put on display. for
Yeah, for
living together.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That,
And
no, I agree. For me, it's like I was like pretty much nomadic for like I, by nomadic I mean like I would spend 20% of my time at most at home, all the way up until COVID. You know what I mean? Like I was always out and about. My grandparents knew this about me, and my
He lived with his grandparents.
I live with my grandparents. When I was living with my mom, she was always gone, so I would always be out of the house, and like that started when I was like 8, like at most 8. So from 8 up until my 20s, I was just like always out and about, and then here I am now, like spending 80% of my time at home. So it's really it's interesting. It's new. I like it. I I really living with my grandparents was the first of a lot of things. It was my first time witnessing like what a home looks like and what a healthy relationship looks like. And by healthy, I don't mean like they're always like I love you, but really just like every day choosing to love each other. And that was never something that I witnessed growing up, and it's not something that I ever felt even with myself up until like up until now. Like I think us living together has really shown me the things that I need to be grateful for rather than like this constant ambition of wanting more and trying to like elevate certain things in my life. Before like one thing I do now is like every morning when I wake up, I just make sure to find a genuine source of gratitude because it's not always like the same way. You know what I mean? Like it sometimes it's hidden deeper in a pocket, especially like if you have this weird dream or you had a weird night or you're having a weird week, right? It's harder to find gratitude in those days, and so I try to, and I've been pretty okay at it at waking up with that sense of gratitude because especially me now, 28, man, like I really feel like I'm gonna look back in at my life, and I'll always remember have this part of my life and look back at it with such fondness. Um, like just overall, you know what I mean? Such like things are good. You know what I mean? Things are good.
things are good.
Not in the ways that I want it to be, like not in terms of like where I want to be in like career and like all of these ambitious things, which which is the type of person I am. But for the first time in my life, I'm really allowed to let go of that because up until this point, I was so obsessed with that. I was so
Mhm.
obsessed with chasing something. And here I am now, just like chilling, getting chubby, like
Yeah,
And
puppy.
hanging out with poodles.
yeah, and you know what? I wasn't going to mention this, but I I there was this one time I kind of asked Leela, kind of I think I don't know what came up, but we were in my car, and it made me think after. I was like, damn, I'm so happy that they're together and that they've found like one another because um Leela was saying like, you know, before I came to the Philippines, I was told that I had to be a certain way and I had to dress a certain way, always put makeup and do all of these things. I had to change who I was to fit into that, you know, that new world that she's going to go into. And then I found Mito, and then I could be like just completely myself. And I didn't have to like change it.
Brush my hair.
Oh my gosh. I remember always having to tell Leland, so I was like, Leland, brush your hair.
That's how
Yeah.
we were talking about. She's always telling me to brush my hair, and then I was like,
But
I.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that. also was another thing. I was like, oh, I have to get them on the podcast and kind of share about how their relationship is. But yeah, that that was kind of like a little story I just wanted to share because
I
it's
like that.
really good. I was like, oh, it was I really thought after that. I was like, that's what I need to find. It's you have to be totally
Yourself.
yourself.
You have
Yeah.
to. I
Mm.
think that's like the definition in one definition of a safe space is where you can be 100%
Exactly.
yourself. Like I've been thinking about it a lot recently, and in the beginning of our relationship, I was so conscious of different
Mhm.
things, like just how I looked. Like if I had a pimple, I would like stress out about it. Uh, Even before being with me, though, just I was always conscious of how I looked, and now he can literally see me in any state, and I'm just like, I don't mind, like I
Mhm.
feel 100% comfortable, and I've never felt that way apart from like with my family. So, yeah, it's really nice.
But also,
Yeah.
like, I think you don't. At least for me, right? Like, it's hard to even know who your actual self is, like, because you're groomed to be a certain way growing up, and so like even in my head, I think, no, I'm supposed to be this way. No, I'm supposed to be this way, and I think because I had to like because my parents kind of disappeared from my life when I was like 16 or 17, I had I was able to kind of like work on that route earlier than a lot of people. And
Mhm.
so now we have this double-edged sword. We're like, yeah, I'm super chill at Lila being who she wants, but I'm also super chill at like everything else, like doing the laundry, doing my yeah.
I wasn't gonna bring that up.
Yeah. But I am happy for you guys,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, and that's kind of why I wanted to bring you guys on here. And like to end things, I just wanted to ask, is there anything, you guys want to say or share before we end the episode?
I want to say thank you for having us.
Mm,
And I know this episode's meant to be about us, but I'm really proud of you. And I think this Safe Space podcast is such a cool idea. Like, this in itself feels like a safe space too,
yeah.
because we, we both feel comfortable to share with you, like, how we're doing and how we're feeling. And you have clearly put in a lot of work and thought into how to create that safe space. So that's my statement. I want to say I'm very proud of you.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, let me get the details of your teacher. So if they don't give you a high grade, I'm gonna matter.
You
Here.
Give her
Dude,
an
watch out. Give me an A.
Also, like, I think to add to that, we're very grateful for you to have you in our lives because more than um, being Lila's best friend, you're really an amazing person. And so when Lila was telling me that like you being a part of Museo was very impactful for you, I was very honored for that because from the outside in, I already see that you're very talented. So for you to be doubting yourself, even with that talent, is kind of like, oh wow, that's very interesting. And so to witness your growth, even like here now, you're graduating school. If you get a good grade,
She's
parang
gonna get a great grade.
and just seeing your like you working at Pino and all of these things, moving to San Francisco by yourself, it's very admirable. So like even though we're not spending a lot of time with each other physically, like we're up to date with each other, and then when we do talk to each other, it's like a good friendship where you don't have like
Mhm.
neither of us are super needy. So like
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah. So
Yeah,
We love you.
thanks, you guys. Thanks, you guys. And also, one thing I wanted to say is look at Mito's shirt. It's
The future is pink.
If you have a few days, the future is pink. It's
It's so
fine.
hard.
Our, the Philippines needs to be a safe space for all of us. So, you know, yeah. Anyways, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to join me and talk. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, you guys.
Anytime.
Bye.
There you have it. That's the end of the episode for today. And I hope that those of you who are listening to us on Spotify or watching us on YouTube, I hope you guys have learned something from our conversation today with Lila and Mito talking about creating or, creating a safe space for yourself and for one another in romantic relationships, as well as safe spaces in music and growing out of old safe spaces. Because some safe spaces that were aren't safe spaces now. And that's totally fine because as you grow, your safe spaces grow and change as well. But yeah, if you did enjoy this episode, do follow us on Spotify. The name is Our Safe Space Podcast. Same on YouTube. And if you would like for me to cover any questions, topics in future episodes, do comment on this YouTube video down below. Or, a lot of people have been messaging me privately on Instagram. Do whatever makes you comfortable. And if that means messaging me on Instagram, it's at oursafespace.ph. So, yeah, message me on there. But other than that, thank you to you who's listening, you who's watching, for taking the time out of your day to listen to this episode. And if you are listening or watching this before May 9, May 9, kailangan natin ng gobyernong tapat. So let's vote for that. Let's make the Philippines a safe space for all of us. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you again for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.